Get ready. Garmin Stone Cold Fishing starts right now.
Hey guys, welcome to Garmin Stone Cold Fishing. I got to admit, I'm on the road right now and ran into a little bit of an internet issue. So my exciting sterile background behind me is a local hotel that allowed me to sneak in. But that's not going to change anything. We've got a great show tonight. We're really going to go in depth into running Garmin LiveScope. So if you've thought about the technology, if you own the technology and want to run it better and understand it better, we've got an incredible cast of characters tonight. We've got National Walleye Touring Pro Tom Kimos, who's actually a very avid ice angler. He's going to talk about how he sets up the unit for and for tournament. And Troy Simonton is going to be on board. So the nice thing is, if you have questions tonight, Frank, thanks for joining us tonight. If you have questions tonight, write them in the comments, and Troy's going to be answering them by himself through the program. So he'll answer if you got specific questions on Garmin LiveScope, ask them, and Troy will be answering right through the comment section in a minute. And by the way, anybody that comments or likes the show tonight, or shares this or has comments tonight, John, thanks for joining us. You're eligible to win a Garmin Striker 4 Ice Bundle, which is phenomenal. I had a chance to fish one of these. It's not only a great sonar, it's also got GPS. So it's a $249 value, but it's one of these high performance units that Garmin's really typical for providing in terms of their tips and stuff like that. Hey, I'd like to bring in right now Danny Thompson, Regional Sales Manager for Garmin. Now, Garmin's been involved in ice fishing for Danny for what, about 4 years now?
Yeah,
and
that's
yeah, I'm going to tell you guys, this guy right here is one of the driving forces behind LiveScope and really Garmin getting involved in ice fishing. This guy went to bat for all of us to get this products on here. So, Danny, I really appreciate you coming on board tonight, and good to see you, man. I love the way your basement's turning out.
Yeah, the home office is definitely turning out pretty good. I'm excited about it, and I'm excited to be on tonight to talk about Garmin. And, we haven't had a lot of sports shows going on this winter, so I'm kind of excited to spread the word and talk to some people and, talk about some Garmin ice fishing here.
Hey, so if somebody wins the Garmin, the Striker 4 Ice Bundle, tell me a little bit about it. When do you go to that unit?
I love the Striker 4. It's an extremely lightweight, easy to use unit. It's got a great flasher on it. Actually, know a lot of people that even take and use it in the kayak in the summertime or Boundary Waters trips, because the great part about it is it's a fish finder, but it also has a GPS. So you can save some waypoints, tracks, trails, make it back to the access and all that kind of stuff that we can do with the GPS.
So let's go deep into LiveScope. I mean, that's why we're here tonight. I want to talk about it. So let's bring up a photo of the Garmin Ice Bundle. I want to talk to you for the four main components on this. So Kai, bring up the photo of the LiveScope bundle. Danny, take me through the four real main elements of the LiveScope bundle.
Yeah, so there's, like I said, there's four main points. Kind of the biggest piece, I guess, is that EchoMap 93 SV unit. This is really one of my favorite head units, and one of them that we sell a lot of here. A 9-inch screen, so you got plenty of room to split screen and do that kind of stuff. It's got all of our Lakeview G3 maps built right into the head unit. So whether you're going to Minnesota, North Dakota, New York, wherever you're going fishing, there's maps already preloaded into that unit for you. So you're able to find everything.
18,000 of them. Yep.
Yeah, 18,000 lakes. That's crazy. And the other piece of it, of course, is the LiveScope. There's a GLS 10 black box in there, and then the LVS 32 transducer that kind of goes with what we call the LiveScope system. That's what's giving us the live image, the transducer, in the brain box, and we're going to go into detail about it. But so you've got that in there, and then we've also kind of got this like extra large bag base, cradle, battery, the charger, and the pole mount that kind of makes the live scope ice bundle what it is. And, that the case it's funny because we put a lot of time just into planning even the bag and some of that stuff, and, putting the padding in there and all the other stuff that we've done to kind of put these pieces together that have brought the live scope bundle to be what it is.
You switched to the UHD model this year with the ice bundle. What was the difference between last year's model and this year's model in terms of the 93?
Yeah, so the cool part is with Garmin EchoMap 93, that's my number one selling summer unit, but it's also in the live scope ice fishing bundle. So when we switched, the UHD is giving us the ultra high definition side imaging and our clear view images. And Steve, I mean, you've seen this stuff on the water. So it's more of a summer thing. But the great part is we snap that out of the quick release bracket. We put it into the boat. And there you go. You've got something that's giving you those ultra high definition side and clear view images.
Yeah, there's no reason to buy a unit just for ice fishing anymore. You've got these units are interchangeable in terms of products and things. But really, I want to go more deeply into the LVS 32, the live scope transducer. And the black box. Tell me, what's the difference between, say, standard sonar or even Panoptics and the live scope, the LVS 32? Kai, yeah, bring up that image. That's the actual the unit, and that's what differentiates live scope from everybody else. And here's the black box with it. But Danny, tell me a little bit more about it.
Look at, so if you look at this image here, you can kind of see the black box, or the GLS 10, we call it, on the right-hand side there. And that's really the brain box and what's kind of giving us this image, or this live image that the transducer is picking up. So that's what I'll call the brain box. On the left, we've got the transducer, the LVS 32 transducer. And if you look at it, you can almost see the three elements on that transducer. So you've kind of got one that's parallel maybe with the water there. And then you'd have two more that are kind of at a slight angle. So we take those three, we stitch them together, and we get a giant viewing angle. And, we're putting these together really quickly. So we're giving ourselves a live image. And, it's pretty neat what these live scope transducers can do and what you can see with them.
So the live scope has 3 arrays versus 1 array on the other units, but this one is a little different in that it has 3 arrays, but it's sending out 2 signals per array. So you got 6 different signals going out, and they're going through the entire frequency. Now, I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to be able to explain it, but we're talking about a massive amount of information, and that's why the black box really allows it to kind of boil it down and give us actually 3 images now. You've got the live scope down, you've got the down and the forward, and then you've got the perspective mount as well. So that's the background behind the actual tech. Let's go into some of the screens themselves. And so if you haven't seen it, guys, here's a clip of Garmin live scope in forward.
So if Danny, you look here, you can kind of see where 0 is. That's where our transducer is going to be. Like if we have it, in the hole of our house, looks like we're dropping a jig down right now, and it's kind of going down. We're looking out about 70 feet. We're in 26 feet of water. You see the fish swimming around down there. And you can actually see what we must be looking at. I'm going to pretend we're on Mille Lacs Lake right now, Steve. And we're looking up at a mud flat or something in front of us where it comes even, right up to the surface. Maybe there's some weeds, it looks like, at about 65 feet where they come up to the surface. And we're right at the bottom edge there. And you see that fish just shot up and took a swing at the jig. But, such a huge viewing, area that live scope gives you. So not only is it live, we're covering such a huge amount of water with one transducer. And it really changes the way that we can fish,
So the signal that comes out in forward is actually it's a very narrow it's a very narrow beam. It's only 20 degrees. I wanted to show you an overhead view real quick and kind of explain what we're showing there as well. So Kai, go to that overhead view on the screen grab. There we go.
Yeah, so if you see here, Steve, I think this is an image of you actually at a live scope bundle in the middle there, and you're looking out, we're looking about 100 feet right now, and we can see some different holes that you've drilled around and whatnot. And that's the beauty with it. So with a 20-degree cone angle and 135, the other way, you're able to look out and search for schools of fish, or search for, weed patches and different things, and really kind of find fish and hone on it exactly where they are. And we've tried some wider angles in the past, but with this narrow 20-degree cone angle, if you drill a hole and you look and you say, Danny, there's a big school of crappies 100 feet that way, I walk 100 feet and drill a hole, I'm going to be right on top of those fish. With the wider cone angles, it's a little bit harder to like narrow in on where those fish were because your cone angle gets wider as you go out. But 20 degrees seems to be the sweet spot. And I mean, you can literally get right on top of those schools.
So if you guys haven't experienced live scope on ice, it's basically, hey, there's a school of crappie or whatever. They're 80 feet this way. You pace it off. You walk right toward the white pine or the red cabin or something, and you're on top of these fish. It's pretty incredible. But the cone angle of live scope in forward is different. And we have a graphic on that too. And I'd like you to explain a little bit about the cone angle side of things. So Kai, bring up that as well. There we go.
Here we go. So now, you can kind of see there, it's showing you 135 degrees, let's say kind of left and right as we're looking at the image right now, and 20 degrees the other way. So you get a significantly wide cone angle, but narrow. So you can kind of hone in on those fish, like I said, but you get a really, wide or long coverage area. So, and obviously the deeper you go, the more coverage you get. The shallower you go, the less distance you're going to be able to see. And it's funny, I get that question all the time, but you get a lot of these shallow water guys and they're like, well, I'm only able to see 40 feet out. Well, you're not able to have the depth to give you that distance, but 135 degrees, I mean, you can really cover some water, even in shallow water, as compared to a regular transducer where we're only covering maybe like 12 degrees.
But go back to that screen, Kai, because I want to talk one thing about it too. You'll notice that it's 135 degrees. So it's actually from where your fish hole is, but it then goes behind you. And so not only can you fish straight down and see your baits, but you can also see fish coming in from the opposite direction than where your forward is. The transducer is actually pointing, which is very, very effective in finding fish. So let's switch over, Danny. I'd like to go a little deeper into the down view right now. So we got a video clip that shows kind of down view. Explain what you're seeing on the screen when it pops up.
So if you look, you see the 0 right there in the middle, and you can kind of look at that wall. It's actually a walleye, I think, from Lake of the Woods, just shot up and when it took a swing at the bait and is going back to the bottom. But you can see 0 right there in the middle of the screen. We're looking 12 feet to the right. We're looking 12 feet to the left, and we're in about 22 feet of water. It looks like, 22 feet of water. And so, imagine if we're sitting in our fish house and we're jigging, we can put this right in the middle. Let's say if we're in our portable house, and you're able to cover basically every single line in that house with this one unit because you have such a wide cone angle. And I used to joke, when we first were coming out with this stuff and I'd put it into, down mode like that. And I'd be sitting there doing work and sending emails and whatnot. And it's like, I could literally just look up and see if a fish was coming and then, go back to work. And if I see them, I put my phone down and actually catch the fish where, in the past, we've always fished with such a narrow cone angle. We wouldn't see the fish till it was almost too late, really. And with this, you can see the fish as they come in. Yeah, I mean, look at how he missed it.
Yeah, look at
and comes back.
When you ever see a walleye come up at a 45 like that, you got him. But look at the top. We're covering 24 feet. You can see. Look at the numbers across the top. We're covering 24 feet of the bottom and 22 feet of water, which is really an amazing view because you see so much more than you used to with traditional 2D sonar. And I think that's the biggest difference between, but here comes that fish in a 45, boom, hook. He's coming up to the top. Yep. So that's it. I want to show you the cone angle now of the live view in down. So live scope and down. So explain a little bit about this as well.
Yeah, so I mean, like it's obviously the same transducer. So we've got the same angles, 135 by 20. But what's cool here is it just shows you, if you look at your ice angler there and he's fishing, he's got the transducer right there where his line goes in the water. I mean, look at how much of an area you're covering, 135 degrees by 20 degrees. I mean, it's like when we first started doing this live stuff, it's like not only is it so cool that it's live, but now all of a sudden you're covering 135 degrees as compared to like 10, 12, 16, whatever we were doing in the past, depending on the transducer you had. So, I mean, your coverage is just so significant with live scope and with this transducer that you can just really cover some water with it.
When you're talking 2D sonar at about the same amount of water, you're really talking about 3 or 4 feet. I mean, if you're in 20 feet of water, you're basically covering about this much of the bottom in a circle. And so live scope gives so much more information. And I found that you've got fish that are rejecting you from a distance, whereas before the only fish that you were seeing on the 2D was either something that was swimming right through or had already come to the bait and then rejected you. Here, if you're seeing fish that are rejecting you in the distance, you're helping to build patterns a lot faster than you normally would as well. So I know Garmin came out with a new perspective mount. There hasn't been a ton of chatter on it for ice, but I think when people realize how valuable this is going to be, and I really look forward to, we got Tom Kemis is going to come on next week and really talk about perspective mount and how he's been using it for shallow panfish. But Kai, bring up a shot of the perspective mount. This is actually a summer setup where it's on the trolling motor mount, but it really gives you an idea what the perspective mount does. And Danny, talk a little bit about how this thing works in terms of bottom coverage.
Yeah, so, like we've talked about the cone angles and the depth of water, the one thing we needed that distance in shallow water. And so what the engineers were actually able to do is kind of go back and come out with this perspective mount or this perspective view where we're actually able to kind of, put the transducer on its side. And now we're taking that narrow up and down and that wide left and right, putting it on its side. And so now we're able to look greater distances in shallow water. So a guy like Tom Kemis, who's just deadly on these bluegills with this perspective mode, I mean, he can seek them out. He can look into the weeds, find these fish so much better because he's getting more distance, than you were able to in the past. So.
Hey, Taylor, I just saw your question. What color jig the guy's using the shack next door? I'll tell you what, years back, Daddy and I were fishing on Mille Lacs, and we were probably 35, 40 feet apart in different houses. And I watched 2 fish come up to Danny, and I actually watched him miss them, and we were giving him a hard time from shack to shack. But what was cool is I watched him catch a fish, and the return was was relatively small, and he goes 17-incher, and then all of a sudden you see this big blob come across the screen, and he's over there screaming. He had a 27 or 28-inch walleye on it, but we could actually tell relative size on these fish, and actually with live scope versus Panoptics. I mean, we were out on a walleye share. He's going to be a 19, 20-incher, and he was like 19 and a half. I mean, it's insane. We'll talk a little bit about that. But hey, so what I do want to take Panoptics, and I do want to take live scope, and I want to kind of put them head to head. So I've got a graphic here. I want you to walk through this in terms of how, what's the difference between the two.
Yeah, so you can kind of look, you've got some bullet points kind of pulled up on the screen here. So Panoptics was kind of what we had originally come out with, was the Panoptics Ice Bundle with our PS22 transducer. We still offer that, but now we've got the Live Scope Ice Fishing Bundle with the LVS32 transducer. And so kind of the main differences is the Panoptics, the PS22 is kind of a phased array. And I guess when I say that, what I really mean is it gives you kind of almost like a radar look. So we don't get the definition and the target separation that we do with live scope, which is actually a frequency steered array. It's still live with the Panoptics. It's more of that radar, almost like you get some of the blobs and some of that kind of look with the Panoptics. And then live scope, we're able to use those frequencies, and we're kind of chirping through a whole bunch of frequencies and getting a great, crisp, clear image. And really one thing that, we've kind of talked about and used as an example here is Panoptics versus live scope. So Panoptics is kind of like that AM radio, where with Panoptics, you can get significant distance when you're, searching for fish, where live scope, you're not going to get as much distance, but you're able to get such great clarity and definition. And so I say it all the time, Steve, if I'm going on a crappie mission and I'm going to go look for, basin crappies in a lake, I will for sure bring my PS22 and my Panoptics over live scope all day long, because I've seen fish. I've been out there with, Josh and Derek, and those guys can pick these fish out, up to 200 feet away, with a PS22, where live scope, where you're just not going to be able to do that. So there's still a place, I think, for Panoptics, and I love it for the distance that it gives us.
I'm a huge fan of Panoptics. Go ahead, Kai. You can drop that graphic on there. But so Danny, back to that detail, I can tell you, I'm going to show you a clip here in a minute. That the first time I ever used live scope, and I want you and the rest of the audience to say, I want to see if you know what kind of fish that we're talking about. But hey, let's move on real quick. I want to bring in Tom Kimos. He's a very well-known walleye tournament pro, fishes the national tour, but he's also a very avid ice angler, and he's done extremely well, especially in these casting events where he's taking live scope and really targeting individual fish and things. So, hey, Tom, welcome to Garmin Stone Cold Fishing. Sure, glad you're here tonight. Can you hear me, Tom? Tom, can you hear me? Kai, what do we got going on? Tom, can you hear me?
I'm not hearing you. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. I can't hear Steve, though.
Danny, take it away for me, all right?
Hey, Tom, can you hear me? You can hear me,
Yeah,
but you can't hear Steve. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So, we've got Tom Kimos here. Steve was just kind of talking. We're talking about the live scope. And so we've got Tom Kimos. Tom is a National Walleye Tour pro and a very decorated National Walleye Tour pro at that. He's on the Garmin Pro team. So he's got some great accomplishments, obviously, on the soft water. But on hard water, Tom is really kind of an expert. And I know he's kind of got a passion, I think, for chasing bluegills. Tom's over in, I guess you could say, eastern Wisconsin would be safe to say. And great bluegill waters over there. And he's really found a way to kind of use the live scope to chase down these bluegills and go after them, using live scope. So, Tom, I guess what we're kind of looking for is, you've got this live scope bundle. What do you do to kind of set it up and kind of these advanced settings? People ask me all the time, hey, can I just, turn it on and go fishing? And you can. I think the auto settings aren't bad. But what are kind of the pro tips that Tom Kimos does to dial in his live scope bundle?
Well, to start with, the beauty of any of the Garmin products is that right out of the box, they're fairly user-friendly, and the auto settings are pretty darn good. But one of the things that I've found is that I like to bump up the gain a little bit. More importantly, I like to have a baseline. Once I set the unit up, when you have it on an auto setting, every time you move from hole to hole, that unit is going to adjust the sensitivity a little bit. So it is going to change what you're looking at. So I like that consistency of, once you're comfortable enough to start adjusting the settings, which, the beauty of the Garmin unit is there's that back button. So if you get the thing all out of whack, you just hit the back button and you can go back and reset it. So that's good. But so what I'll do is I'll bump that gain up, but that's going to be real dependent on the water clarity. So some of the places that I fish, and which are some of the places where the live scope is really effective, the water is a little bit dirtier. So that's going to greatly affect how I'm going to set that up. And that's kind of a seat of the pants deal, really. As far as the color palettes, I prefer most of the time amber, but the one exception to that is if I have the unit sitting off from where I'm fishing on the ice, say I'm hole hopping, okay, I will go to a yellow palette because those fish marks will pop a little bit more in that situation. But for the most part, I stick with the amber color palette. That goes the same in open water too. If I'm trolling, I'll go to the yellow palette because I can see the targets a lot better when I'm back at the kicker motor or whatever. Same thing when I'm jumping around on the ice. But once again, one of the biggest things that also helps you is that these units have a built-in simulator mode. And, from the comfort of your couch, and I highly recommend people
Mhm.
doing this with any of the units. Turn that simulator mode on and just play around with all those settings, and you can see firsthand, what we're talking about. And then when you go to the lake, you can spend less time. But once again, dedicate. You're going to make a big investment with these units. Spend a little bit of time. Try to dedicate a little bit of time when you go to the water to dialing your electronics in, and they're going to pay way more dividends if you get comfortable with making all those adjustments. And it isn't rocket science by any means, but you just need to be aware that you can tweak those settings. But once again, I try not to get bogged down too much with playing with the electronics when I'm on the water. I try to get a baseline set up, and just so that every time I drop that into a different hole, I'm basically looking at the same thing.
Yep. So Tom, one thing we kind of talked about too is, so you've kind of dialed in your color scheme, you've dialed in the gain, based on the day and how you like it. Now, one thing that I like to use, and I think Steve likes to use too, are the trails feature. I like to set the trails up at fast. I mean, what are your thoughts on setting up trails on these units?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a time and a place for them. I do prefer it when I'm in down mode with fishing and vegetation. I do appreciate being able to, because sometimes the fish are a little bit tricky to see depending on if you're fishing in real heavy milfoil. They may move, through a thicker patch.
Yeah.
But you can actually track their movement. But more importantly, because you have all the vegetation there, you can tell that those fish are moving to you or moving away from you. But once again, that down mode in a vegetation situation is amazing. Like that, anybody that's ever fished 2D sonar, fishing this live scope in vegetation, it's insane what you can see with it. But once again, yeah, that's a situation where I'm going to use trails. Also in perspective mode, I will use it. Once again, if you aren't always looking at that unit, I can still see when I see the marks. I instantly know the direction that they're traveling. I can see that movement. So that's really important. That's one of the biggest things, really, for me with live scope, is being able to pinpoint the direction that those fish are moving, and the goal is to be in front of them.
Yep, exactly. So you're not.
So Danny, I wanted to talk to both of you guys. If Tom, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but
yeah, you want to be standing in front of them instead of chasing them.
Yep.
Hey, Danny, talk a little bit about color gain and how you use color gain.
Kind of broke up there a little bit. Can you guys hear me still?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear
So,
it. It's me. You guys, it's me that's the issue.
Steve's talking. So one thing Steve's kind of talking about, I think, Tom, is kind of using color gain. And so, when we're trying to kind of, make the best image on the screen, so we've got gain and we've got color gain. So it's kind of two different things. And I guess, what is kind of your take on the color gain versus the gain when you're setting it up?
The color gain for me is more of a visual, and it kind of depends. It depends on, if you have low light conditions or if it's real sunny. For me, it just helps me see the targets a little bit better. It crisps the image up more, but it doesn't. For me, I don't use it that much to change the input that I'm getting as far as what the fish are doing. I'll rely on the gain more than that. The color I use more for, just to make it a little bit easier to see based on the light conditions.
And I know I talked to some of the bass guys that are flipping heavy milfoil, which is, so foreign from us maybe as ice fishermen, but I know they like to bring the color gain up, and people ask me all the time too, how to get the best image. And I like to bring that color gain up because it just seems to make things more like reflective or stand out, kind of like you're saying, especially if the unit is a little bit of a distance away from you. So it seems like if we bring that color gain up, we can actually run our actual gain, or our regular gain, I'll call it, a little bit lower, and it gives us more range in that gain, if that kind of makes sense. So I think that's a great way to kind of manage that. And it kind of ties us into kind of the next thing that we're going to talk about here, is kind of managing noise or interference, or how you set up the screen. And I know you've kind of got a cool tip on this, but as far as kind of like running your interference and your TVG and some of that stuff we have, like how do you go about setting those and managing interference when you're setting your unit up?
Hey, Danny, before you go in that, I want to run this clip from Lake of the Woods.
Once again, kind of going back to keeping it simple for me, I don't play around with that too much, because I want to be getting the maximum out of that unit. I'm not so concerned about seeing a super clear target as much as I am being able to see, more data out there. So I usually try to keep mine the situation where I want to be able to see if there's a color change, if there's a water temperature change. I want to see all those things. So I typically don't get too into horsing around with making an adjustment on that. If I do, I'll bump it up slightly, but other than that, I don't really play around with that too much.
Okay. So I think Steve's got a video, and I think you said it's from Lake of the Woods, Steve?
Yeah, we ran it already, Danny, but it's this shot of what a clear screen looks like. And Kai, this is, bring up that number, clip 13. So you can see it's basically bottom, fish, and lure. And you can see that jig down in 24 feet of water. You see that, is this actually a small walleye or a sauger coming up on it? But that's a great example of a super clear screen where you've got good detail, good information, but you've got it honed down to the point where you're not seeing as much as you possibly could. So now, Kai, would you run a shot of this this next clip? And now just look at the difference here. I mean, you look at that fish shape, and you can almost determine what kind of you actually can determine what that species is. And then two, Danny, talk a little bit about relative size. You can see that it's set up where we've got the grid pattern on there, and we can actually tell the relative length of that fish accurately.
Yeah, Steven, that's kind of the cool thing. So, and Tom does makes a good point about this, and I'm going to step back a little bit and kind of talk about that. But you looked at the image or the video there from Lake of the Woods where we can see the walleye. The image was beautiful. I mean, that is an absolutely beautiful screen. We've got no interference. We don't have any clutter or anything like that. It looks really, really good. And then you had that video of the pike. We can obviously see that it's a pike, and we've got a lot of noise kind of on that video, or interference, or our gain was a little bit high, or whatever it is, right? But you can see the definition. And so I think that's really important. I think people sometimes try too hard to get that perfectly clear screen, and they'll run their interference way up. They'll run their TVG way up and do some of that stuff, versus, like Tom says too, is if you leave that gain a little bit higher sometimes, or you run your TVG on low, you run your interference on low, sure, you're going to get a little bit of stuff on the screen, but your definition and what you're going to see is actually a lot better, because what it is it's a filter. And I know one of the comments that popped up is, what is the delay? Well, it's live, so there should be no delay. But if we start running all of our noise rejects and interference stuff real high, we're filtering stuff out, and we're going to start to slow down some of that process.
It's pretty. I mean, that shot when that bike came, background on it. That's the first time I ever used
very
live
similar.
scope. Go ahead.
What's that, Tom?
I'm sorry. It's very similar, even to 2D sonar. The more that you try to get that perfect picture, you're kind of taking away from being able to gather all the data. So if you can work through, some of the, I don't even like to call it clutter, because a lot of times it's actually things that are occurring in the water that you're seeing. So and those are all important things. If there's some sort of bug in the water, if there's a thermocline or a color change, those are all things that I want to see. So yeah, you have to, like they say, when you're in down view and you're sitting in the ice house, it's nice to have that beautiful picture.
Yeah.
But when you're in hunt mode and you're out, trying to hunt them down, I like to be able to take all that data and have it at my fingertips.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, Danny, let's let Tom go. And
one of the things too that's kind of cool here is that I've found with keeping the TVG low and your gain up is that I can see the ice holes a lot better, which is huge when when you are tracking those fish down. It gives you a lot better reference point. I can pan back and forth, and all of a sudden, I'll see a group, working their way out, and I'll pan. All of a sudden, I'll realize, well, there's a hole that they're heading to, and I can roll over there real fast. Where if you start turning all those settings to get that crystal clear picture, you're not going to see those things. Even like ice hues, you can see that a lot easier when you have those settings. Sloppy isn't the term, but that's really how it is. The picture isn't perfect, but the data is incredible that you can see there.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. For sure. Well, I think we're going to kind of go to the next topic, Steve, and maybe we'll start talking about kind of these bottom arches that we've talked about. Transition to that. Yeah.
Tom, thank you very much.
Yeah, Tom, I know you can't hear Steve right now, but thank you so much. We appreciate having, kind of the pro or the expertise on this. It's like sometimes we get so tied into this, me on the sales side, and it's nice to hear from people that are actually using this in the water and seeing how to set it up to be successful as you have with LiveScope. So we definitely appreciate having you on. And I know we talked earlier, but we're going to go into perspective mode next week. And I think that's something people aren't going to want to miss. Tom is really kind of the expert on this perspective mode stuff. So make sure you tune in next week with Tom and for the perspective mode that we're going to cover.
Awesome.
Hey guys, thanks a lot for having me on. And I love talking about this because it really is incredible. And I can't say enough about it. And once again, I love talking about it. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. So Danny, I'm not sure why I'm having issues with everything. Everything was working fine at testing, but anybody that's watching, I apologize tonight. We ran into some internet issues. I bolted to a neighboring hotel, and they were gracious enough to set me up in their business suite. But all I know is I've never had internet issues till tonight, and it was a panic time about an hour before the show was to start. So, hey guys, we've had a ton of great comments coming in, a lot of great questions coming in, and Troy Simonton, Garmin expert, one of the engineers behind LiveScope and transducer technology, is on there answering. So if you have questions, everybody that comments, you're going to be eligible to win that Striker 4 bundle tonight. So please continue to send those through, and thank you for joining us tonight. Hey, Danny, one of the things I wanted to bring up is one of the questions that you see a lot is what we'll call the bottom arches. And Kai, would you bring up the bottom arches? And I want you to explain what's happening here and how to fix this if you're running into this on this. So Kai, this is number 15. Yes, there we go.
So you can see here, we're kind of in the down mode. You can see 0 is the center there where the transducer would be. We're kind of looking down. It almost looks like, I'm guessing you maybe grabbed this image when you were ice fishing, and you've got one line, on the left, one line on the right, because I can see a couple of baits down there. And then you can see the bottom. So the bottom, as most people will know, is kind of the red line going across the bottom there at about, looks like 26 feet. And then you're seeing some of these arches. What you're seeing is what Steve's talking about, for those of you that aren't seeing it, is kind of that blue, looks like I don't know, kind of some blue specks or blue haze. Yeah, kind of to the left and to the right there. And so
right above the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of the bottom arch there. And so what we're getting there is we're getting a little bit of kind of like reflection, I guess you could call it, from the transducer, and even in forward mode, we'll sometimes get this, and we'll call it like a ghost tree, where we'll get a little bit of reflection. And so the hard part with this is it can be a tricky thing to track down. So it could be the type of bottom. And if you look here, it looks like we're on a real solid bottom with that nice red line there and not much mud on top of it. So you get a little bit of reflection. What you can do here is some of that interference stuff that we talked about, as far as bringing your gain down, bring your color gain up, and we can kind of try to get rid of some of that stuff and get rid of those arches. You can also zoom it in a little bit. But what you're getting there and what you're seeing is really kind of just a reflection. So, it's really has a lot to do with the bottom composition or the type of bottom on the lake that you're fishing in.
So how do you get rid of it?
Biggest thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there is I'm going to take my color gain, bring it up a little bit to make the bottom a little bit more reflective. And then I'm going to actually bring my gain down and just kind of bring my gain down to get rid of that reflection. And so on the forward now, there is an actual rejection that you're going to see option in some of the units for the ghost tree. So we can actually use that. It's almost like a filter or a noise reject just for that reflection. In the summertime, if we don't use the 0 degree mount and we switch to the regular live scope mount, that does help too in the summertime.
That's awesome. Hey, I know we want to bring in Corey Brock with Reed's Sporting Goods. Reed's is a tremendous Garmin dealer, but they've got stores both on the shores of Mille Lacs Lake and Leech Lake, which are both key fisheries. And so I'd like to bring Brock in at this time. And hopefully there you are. Hey, you're at the store still. Are you guys still open?
Well, I'm here tonight, just helping you guys out and listening in, because this is some pretty cool stuff. So I thank you guys for having me on. So
I will tell you, Corey is the premier Garmin expert. I think I call Corey sometimes when I have questions on the Garmin stuff. I mean, this guy, he does know his stuff. So Corey is definitely, I think, one of the better ones we got out there for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah, this has been pretty fun. This has been pretty fun the last few years with this live scope. I mean, I've been with Reed's for about 17 years now. And, when you talk about a product like this being a game changer, I mean, this truly is really a game changer. I mean, I've never seen anything out of the market that's come close to it. So it's a pretty fun thing to sell too on my side.
So, hey, take me through how are ice conditions on Leech and Mille Lacs right now? And what are you hearing in terms of the bites on both lakes?
Right now, I mean, as we approach kind of the end of January, we've had a pretty mild winter here in northern Minnesota. So, I mean, our ice conditions are getting to be pretty good now, probably a little later than normal as far as, thickness of the ice. But, right now, I mean, I'm up here in Walker. For the most part, Leech Lake, we're doing pretty good. I mean, they're moving around all over out on the main lake right now. Pine Point, Horseshoe Bay, south end of the lake. Walker Bay, really just in the last week or so. People have been moving around as far as vehicle travel. They've been pretty cautious with it, just with some of the nicer weather we've had here this winter. But we're doing pretty good. Mille Lacs Lake, same thing. I know I saw a few posts down there this weekend. Sounds like a lot of the resorts got a lot of their roads open, so they're moving around. As far as our bites going right now, I mean, as we approach kind of that end of January, we're seeing the walleye bite, starting to kind of tone down a little bit. Still pretty good. I think without having a lot of this traffic out in the lake right now, that's also helped the bite continue. So, like always, the bite kind of for us out here when we get closer to that February time, we'll start to slow down. But it's a great time now to start, looking at different lakes and getting out chasing panfish. I mean, obviously the live scope is a game changer on that side. So, people are starting to do a lot of different things on some of the smaller lakes too.
So, Corey, what are some of the guys doing and gals when they're buying live scope for summer and winter? I mean, what if someone bought this unit today from you, what do they need to set it up for summer fishing? So you've got a unit that's both summer and winter.
Well, one of the things that we've done the last couple of years, and Garmin's really helped us out with this is, we put together what we call a Garmin 93 all-season bundle. That all-season bundle is something that's a Reed's exclusive that we put together. It comes basically with everything. And I know it's a little tough to kind of see. I tried to lay out some of the parts and pieces here, but what it's going to come with, it's going to come with a 93 UHD. It'll come with your extra large bag. It's going to come with the live scope deucer. It's going to come with another bail mount. It'll come with your dual power cord, Comes with a Dakota lithium battery and a charger.
There it is right here.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. So I mean, it's a bundle that really we designed it to be an all-season unit. So I mean, basically you're going to move that 93 in your LiveScope transducer from your winter setup to your summer setup. So it's been really exciting to have those. They've been very, very, very popular. Right now, we're back into taking pre-orders on them. We will see more. I've got all the components on hand right now, other than the 93 head. I'm waiting for those to come from our friends at Garmin. Should see those first couple of weeks in February here. But the way they've been going, if you're looking for one, call us. We'll get you on that pre-order list. It's a great deal. It's a great savings. They run $26.99. That comes basically set up for summer and winter.
So I know Danny's going to go deep into this next week's show about taking the LiveScope and setting it up for wheelhouses and snow bears and things like that. But you guys do sell products that kind of a set for setting up the snow bear or the wheelhouses. What are the products that you actually offer, and what should people think about when they want to do that type of setup?
Yeah, and the one thing we've got the last couple of years is a lot of people with their permanent houses and obviously snow bears, they're looking for that, HDMI out, so they want to be able to run the screen into, say, a bigger TV. So we kind of went and set up also a snow bear, a couple different types of snow bear packages. The 8610 would be one. The new 1243 is going to be another one that'll have an HDMI out on it. And we've made some bundles to have the LiveScope basically with it, the 1243, your pole mount. Then you're able to, run it in your snow bear or your permanent fish house and run it into that bigger TV. So it's another pretty cool kit. We've got all of those units on hand right now, 1243s, 8610s, 126s, 106s,
Wow.
Plenty of product on hand right now.
So Danny, what's the experience like to watch LiveScope on a 40 or 45 inch screen like you've got in your wheelhouse?
I tell you what, Steve, when I can sit on the couch with my rattle wheels down and my LiveScope on a 40-inch TV and watch a walleye come in while I'm snacking on some Doritos, there's nothing better.
That's amazing. So which unit are you running then in your wheelhouse?
So I actually went with an 8610. Obviously with the wheelhouse, you've got the generator, so you got a lot of power, but I've got a 10-inch screen. I love the clarity on that 10-inch screen. It fit really nicely above, kind of off to the side of my TV, and we'll have some pictures of this for next week. But, it fit really nicely on the wall. I've got a 10-inch screen, so that is actually facing back towards like my dinette, and then I've got a 40-inch TV kind of facing the couch. And it works great. I mean, you got HDMI cable running there. It doesn't take a ton of power. It's a pretty cool setup. And, you imagine these guys in these snow bears, some of these other things. I mean, if you are looking at all to set that stuff up, I mean, you really got to tune in next week and kind of see some of the setups we've got there. And, it's cool stuff for sure. There's, like I said, nothing better than watching the walleye coming on a TV.
I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. Hey, Corey, I know Leech has a lot of shallow water flats and weed flats and things that guys are fishing. So has the perspective mount been real popular with your customers?
It has been, especially now, starting to get into February, our perch bite starts to get really good. So a lot of this shallow water, that 8 to 12 feet of water, people searching for, the weeds that are still out there, searching for those, perch out in the weeds. Yeah, perspective mounts made a huge difference too, being able to scan and look for it. I mean, I had just a week ago, I had one of my gun guys here in the store. He grabbed one of our units and took it out. It's never run it before other than walking by it in the store here every day. Took it out and literally within 10, 15 minutes, he had it figured out. He located a big, school of perch that were, adjacent to some weeds. And the perspective's done wonders for it too. So
I'll never forget, Danny, I don't know if I told you the story. The first time I tried perspective mount, it was actually in the boat. And I turned it on. I'm like, okay, what am I looking at here? Okay, these are clearly weed clumps, but there can't be that many fish down there. Just can't be that many fish. And then all of a sudden, out of the corner comes a big muskie, and they scattered in front of me. And I'm like, I had no clue that I could have literally hundreds of sunfish and crappie and small bass and things that in front of me. And so perspective mount, I haven't tried it much on the ice yet, just because I haven't been on the ice a ton in that situation where I'm fishing shallower water. But yeah, that perspective mount is one of those things that's really, if you're a pan fisherman, a perch fisherman, or you fish a lot of shallow flats, it's really one of those dynamite things. So then, hey, Corey, did you have some custom mounting kits or something for the snow bears or the some of the other wheelhouses?
Well, a lot of the snow bears and the wheelhouses, I mean, they're using them, with their gimbal brackets. I mean, obviously the kits we have, are going to come with your pole mount, the Garmin pole mount, obviously the live scope deucer and whatever unit you choose. But there's a lot of different ways people are mounting them in there. I mean, if it's a Ram mount, if it's a Cisco mount, hanging them from the ceiling. I mean, we've seen just about everything. And really all those parts and pieces and everything, that stuff that we stock on hand, and, come on in or give us a call and we can figure out, what's going to work the best for you too. So,
and you know what, Steve, I was going to say, what too, Steve, that is really interesting about these and talking about all these different mounts is, what's funny, and I think Corey could talk about this, is how many people take this ice kit, we're using it in the boat. And we did this summer, Steve, where we're literally using the ice fishing kit. We've got all these great electronics in the boat, right? We've got this ice fishing kit sitting in there on the seat, and that's what we're fishing with. And I think Reed's actually carries the mount for that. And I'm trying to remember what mount you actually had in your boat, but I know there's some great ones out there, like Brew City Trolling Motors makes one, Fishing Specialties, Traxxas. I think there's a lot of great companies that make them. But it just transitions so well back and forth, so going from snow bear to wheelhouse to boat and that kind of stuff. And all the different mounts that are out there, I guess, it has really come a long ways here in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So Corey, if somebody walks in the store and say, hey, talk to, should I go with Panoptix or should I go to Live Scope? How do you typically answer that question? Did you hear me on that, Corey? Oh, he froze up here, Danny.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. So we might have to let him go. Yeah, Danny. I mean, answer that question if you run into it with a client or with
Here's what happens, Steve. Is Live Scope is so dang popular right now. So and there's so much technology. I mean, here we are on Facebook Live tonight talking to a lot of people on a lot of different avenues, and people really get information nowadays where they didn't get it before. So it seems like when they walk into Reed's or they walk into these retailers or these shows and they say, hey, I want a Live Scope ice mount. A lot of times I feel like they've done their research. What I find with should I buy a Panoptix or should I wait for the Live Scope is I get, a younger guy or someone who's really just trying to, save money and pinch pennies and decide, is it really worth spending the extra money on the Live Scope bundle? And in some cases, yes, I think a lot of times it is, but like I always say, and I think too, is like, I am such a fan of the PS22 still.
Me too.
I mean, I would not be scared to buy a Panoptix ice bundle with the PS22. There's great deals on them out there this year. And I think, we sold a lot of them this year. We've sold a lot of them over the last few years, but it really just kind of depends. Are you a guy like Tom Kimos who's fishing in the weeds and you're in shallow water and you're trying to pick out these bluegills in the weeds? I mean, you almost have to go with Live Scope in that situation. But now if you're a guy like me that likes to fish crappies in central Minnesota and these deeper basin lakes, I mean, I think there's been a lot of times I haven't even brought a Live Scope with me. I'm just using Panoptix because of the distance, and I'm looking for that school. Once I find the school, I mean, we did a deal with Wade Middleton actually a couple years ago.
Out of Texas, yeah.
Yeah, he's a Texas guy. He come up ice fishing, but once we got on the school, Josh and Derek are experts at this. And once we found the school, we just dropped jigs down. We weren't even using a flasher. We weren't using the Panoptix. It's literally just a matter sometimes of being on top of the fish in that situation. I've been to Lake of the Woods with the Panoptix kit and put it in down mode. I've caught these walleyes. A lot of times people are up there and they're catching lots of eaters and they're not getting the big fish. Well, with Panoptix, I'm able to see these big walleyes coming in 6 feet down, basically right underneath the ice. And I suppose they're chasing some bait fish or something high like that. But Panoptix works great for that. And you don't have to go to the Live Scope for that. It's just really the Live Scope, is for the customer that really needs that detail and that definition and is kind of looking for that. But the PS22 does work great. The other thing is
Yeah.
we go from summer to winter so easily. If you're going to put it on the boat and use it in the summertime, in the summer, it seems like live scope does have a lot of benefits over the Panoptix just because of the clarity in the weeds.
Yeah. One of the things that I think people are going to learn the more they use live scope or Panoptix is you've learned this, I've learned this, and a lot of people have, is the bigger walleyes tend to be suspended more often than not. I've run into it open water, but I've also run into it a lot ice fishing. The last time on Lake of the Woods, it was like almost we're in 30 or 24 to 26 feet of water, and any fish that came through at 17, 18, 16, they were big fish. And if you run into that, I know you've run into that a lot.
Yeah. And it's funny because this goes back to when we originally were going to come out with Panoptix, and I had it mounted to a hockey stick. I had a big old battery. The transducer was a lot bigger back then. We're out on Mille Lacs Lake on the mud flats, and Mike, a friend of mine, sitting there, and he's jigging away, and he can't even see this fish, and I can see this fish coming in because Panoptix was such a wide cone angle. But when those fish are up high like that, I mean, it was through his cone angle so fast. It's like if he wasn't, watching, he probably never even seen a mark. It's
right.
Such a narrow cone angle, and you just get a line on a screen where with the Panoptix, here I am looking 10, 20 feet this way, 10, 20 feet that way, and I'm able to see these fish coming at that higher distance or higher up in the water column. And I mean, I think, and a lot of the good ice fishermen back in the day knew this. They'd run lines just down a little ways. And I mean, Panoptix just proves that. I mean, you will catch so many more fish higher in the water column. And what it is, I think these fish, especially on these bigger lakes, Mille Lacs, Lake of the Woods, there's some sort of bait fish that's higher that they're after.
Hey, Danny, we're running out of time here a little bit, but we've got some really cool stuff. Like we're still going to pick a winner tonight. And I know Troy Simonton, our Garmin engineer, has been answering a ton of questions as they've come through. We've had hundreds. Actually, it's been awesome to have everybody on board. Next week, we're going to talk about power. We're going to talk about, should you go lead or lithium? What can you expect in terms of life from your live scope unit? How can you lengthen the amount of time you get out of your live scope unit? Things like messing with your display light, your backlight, and stuff like that. And we'll go into some depth on that, and battery maintenance, battery protection. And then I want you to go deep into setting up not only for your wheelhouse and snow bear, but I want to talk about transducer positioning. In the old days, we'd cut a hole here, we'd cut a hole here, we'd put another hole here. You got your little triangle, and then you drop your 2D sonar, and you're looking down, and you got your two lines. Well, with live scope and the difference in the cone angle, that's not the best way to do it. And doing it the right way will really impact how much you see and how many fish you're going to be able to catch and how much fun you can have that. So. Which is awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. Tom Kimos is going to be back. He's going to go deep into perspective mount, how he sets it up, what it shows, how he's using it to catch more fish in this shallow water, which would be pretty awesome. So I'm looking forward to it. Hey, Derek, we really appreciate you getting involved. Hey, guys, I've seen a lot of names on here from College of Ice as well. So thank you all for joining us tonight. I've been really looking forward to talking to Danny and Tom and having Troy on board. I apologize. We've never had issues with the tech in the past, but internet went down. I think it was everybody watching the Packer game, because I think it just all of a sudden it just shut down when they lost the game. Everybody just kind of, I don't know what happened. The internet broke, but thanks for your patience tonight. Hey, we've got a winner tonight. Brian Erickson. He's going to be the winner of the first Striker 4 bundle from Garmin. So, Brian, thank you for tuning in tonight. We'll get we're going to need you to message us with your home address and everything so we can get this out to you. So congratulations on this. But Danny, thanks for tonight. I appreciate everything. And everybody that tuned in, thank you. I don't know what the latest is with the Kansas City game and the Buffalo, so we'll see what happens. But everybody, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. We'll see you next Sunday at 7 p.m. Central right here at these different outlets for Facebook Live. Danny, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Steve.
All right. Bye, guys.